In this video, we're going to talk about a tool for evangelism that we call gospel appointments. Why is it called a gospel appointment? Because we're believing that God regularly appoints times for you and I to share the good news of Jesus with those who may have never heard. So it's God's appointed time for you and I to share the good news of Jesus. And so a gospel appointment just plainly is this. I meet somebody maybe for the first time, or maybe I've been knowing them for a bit, and I said, hey, I'd love to just grab lunch. I'd love to grab coffee. I'd love to hear more about your story. I'd also love to share a little bit about mine. So what we've done in this moment is we have set up an intentional time where we know we're going to talk about each other's lives. Now, in my life, I'm going to talk explicitly about Jesus, that Jesus not only is a part of my life, he is my life. And so at this point, the person probably knows I'm a Christian. And we're setting up a time to have a specific conversation about our stories. So it's intentional, but also it's appropriate. I would imagine we've all seen the situation or perhaps even been a part of a situation where a real strong, passionate evangelist says, I've got to share every bit of the gospel with this person right now. And it's the waiter or waitress, and they've got 30 tables that they're waiting on, but we're going to kind of hijack the moment and say, I've got to tell you everything about Jesus in this moment. And I'll tell you, if the Lord leads you to do that, then we care a lot about following Jesus and being obedient to Jesus and listening closely to the Spirit. But sometimes that might not feel appropriate. That the social context isn't really set up for a waiter or waitress to have a very long, extended conversation about the gospel. Now, a waiter or waitress, perfect opportunity to do a quick blessing. Hey, let me pray for you. Maybe there's another time we could connect, but a gospel appointment is appropriate. Why? Because I've asked for permission to have a meeting, a separate time that is purely for conversation. So not only is it intentional, but it's appropriate. And then lastly, it's relational, that our culture places a really high value on genuine, meaningful relationships. And so oftentimes, gospel sharing feels like just a transfer of information. But when I sit down at a table with somebody and we're eating together, or perhaps we're having coffee together, it's primarily relational, that I'm actually knowing this person's name and their life. And as I'm listening to their life story, I'm perhaps even thinking about how I might communicate the gospel to them. So a gospel appointment is intentional, it's appropriate, and it's relational. Now, how do I set up a gospel appointment? And then what do I do when I'm in one? Okay, so perhaps you've been to a block party with the well, or you've been to some events that we've done with the well before. And here's what I just encourage each of us to do. The next time you're at an event with the well, be on the lookout for God perhaps leading you into an opportunity to set up a gospel appointment. So just the other day, we're at a block party and I meet this individual and say, hey, my name's Chris, and we start talking and getting to know one another more. And perhaps I'll just say, hey, maybe sometime this week, maybe next week, I'd love to buy you lunch. I'd love to take you out to lunch. And I'd just love to hear more about your story, what brought you to San Marcos and what your life has been like. And I'd love to share a little bit more about mine. And if that person agrees, they've now agreed to an appropriate time, a relational time, and an intentional time to have a conversation about each other's lives. So we go from this point to setting up this actually appropriate meeting space and time for us to have a purposeful conversation. So then the day comes and we grab coffee and we're sitting down. I said, man, I'm so grateful that you made time to be able to get together today. I'd just love to hear more about your story. Where'd you grow up? What are the primary things that shaped you and formed you? And then, yeah, I'd love to know, like, has faith played a role in your life? Like, has God been a part of your life at all? If so, what did that look like? And I'll just ask that question. I'll throw it out there and see how they respond. And if they tell their whole story and it seems like God is absent from that, or they didn't include any of that, I'll just ask, hey, did you have any experience with church or with religion? And if so, what was that like? It's appropriate. We sat down to talk about each other's stories, and I've never been in a situation where that felt burdensome or rude or inappropriate at all. That is just natural conversation. And then at that time, I'll share my story. And I'll share about how I grew up and what that was like. But based upon how they shared their story, I might choose to emphasize different themes in the story that God's written in my own life. And so the other day I met with someone that knew a lot about band directing. And so I shared about how I was a music major at Sam Houston State. And in the midst of that, I got connected to a church. And really through relationship with this church, I learned a whole lot about my relationship with God and how God viewed me and the things he wanted for my life and how that radically transformed my life. As I'm sharing my story and I'm seeing how they're responding, now I'm going to be asking the Lord, would you open a door here for me to just clearly have a plain conversation about the gospel, perhaps even a conversation that concludes in me saying, hey, so like, would you want to follow Jesus? And so a lot of that just depends on how the conversation's going. But I am intentionally on the lookout for that opportunity. And so I would encourage you in the next few weeks to ask God, hey, God, would you give me the opportunity to have a gospel appointment with somebody? The wonderful thing about gospel appointments is they don't have to be a long relationship that you've been cultivating for a significant amount of time. That I typically use gospel appointments with strangers, people that I'm wanting to get to know more, or people that I have no idea where they're at with the Lord. So as we have events or house church parties or things like this, I would encourage you to be on the lookout, asking God, hey, God, I know that you have appointed times for me to share the good news of Jesus with people. So God, would you open my eyes to those things? So hope this is helpful.